Good morning, students. Moving ahead with our chapter, that is organisms and population. Last time we discussed about some of the important terms of this chapter, and today we are going to discuss one of the another important topic. See, we are going to discuss about the environmental factors. We know that environment is going to be everything that is present surrounding a organism, and this environmental factor, they are of two components. One is abiotic components and second are biotic components. We already discussed these things, that the survival of living organisms is not possible if they are not interacting with the abiotic components that are surrounding them. So, both the environmental factors are important. In this class, we are going to discuss about the abiotic components, abiotic factors that are influencing life of organism, and later on we will talk about the biotic components. So, simply as the name is suggesting, these are the non-living factors, and these non-living factors, we are generally focusing about the main abiotic components which are highly influencing the life of a organism. First one is water, temperature, then we are having light, soil. So, in this video we are going to discuss about all these four abiotic components one by one. I am starting from water. The first one is water. We know that 70% of Earth's surface is covered with water. But if we talk about this 70% of water that is present on Earth's surface, almost 97.5% is going to be present in oceans, and this water is going to be the salty water that is not used for various purposes. If we talk about the fresh water, only 2.5% of fresh water is present, that is present in rivers, ponds, rivers are there, or groundwater is also available, and that is used by most of the living organisms. If we see the characteristics of water, again that is going to be tasteless, odorless, colorless, it liquid, that is made up of hydrogen and oxygen, the proportion is 2:1. What we need to discuss is, we simply need to discuss is how water is affecting the life of living organisms. Before going to that, first we need to understand water cycle, because there is role of living organisms in water cycle. If we see, then water is moving in a cyclic way between air, land, then ocean, living organisms. We simply know that water is going to evaporate from ocean when the surface is going to be heated up by the sunlight. It is going to evaporate, move upward, it is going to form clouds. Clouds are going to move away with the help of wind, and finally cooling is occurring, and the water that was moving upward in the form of vapors, that is going to convert into water droplets, and finally it is coming on the earth's surface. It can come in form of rain or sleet, snow or hail, and this is how the water is rising from oceans and it is coming back to oceans. Are also getting the rainfall, land is also getting the rainfall, and this is how the water is moving back. Then how it is living organisms are related to that? Living organisms are also taking water. Say I am taking simple example of plants. Plants are going to absorb water from soil. Plants are evaporating this water that they have taken from soil in form of transpiration. In air, in atmosphere, this water is removed out by plants in form of transpiration, and because of this transpiration, the air that is present near about the plants, that is going to cool down. Even the plant surface is also cool down. This is going to be moving upwards, again in form of vapors, and again coming back in form of rain. So this is how the living organisms, even other living organisms also, they are taking organic food or they are directly consuming water, then they are removing water. Either they are removing in form of sweat by perspiration, or they are removing excess of water in form of urine also. So this is how living organisms, whether they are plants or animals, they are also consuming water and they are removing water. So water is moving in a cyclic way. This is going to be the global water cycle. This is a global water cycle that is working, and this is a biological water cycle that is working in living organisms. So this is how these two water cycles are working, in which water is being circulated. Now let's see the effect of water on living organisms. Living organisms have adapted themselves according to the water conditions that are present in the environment in which they are surviving. We can see adaptations in many organisms, like simple one are the plants which are surviving in aquatic conditions, hydrophytes. These are the plants which are living in aquatic conditions. Aquatic environment. If we see these plants, then they are having parenchyma in them. And these parenchyma are having air-filled spaces in which air is being filled. And these air-filled spaces are known as lacunae. What these lacunae are going to have? These lacunae are going to have carbon dioxide and oxygen. We know that carbon dioxide was used in photosynthesis and oxygen that was liberated out in respiration. This O2 is going to be used by plants and CO2 is liberated out. So this oxygen and carbon dioxide is going to be stored in this lacunae so that they can be further used for the purpose of photosynthesis and respiration. And another thing is that this is a bag-like structure that is having air filled in them. So it helps these aquatic plants for floating. They provide buoyancy to the aquatic plants and help them in floating. So this is how the hydrophytes are well adapted to the water conditions. The second type of plants are there which are living in the scarcity of water. These are xerophytes. They are living in less water conditions. And these plants, they have also adapted themselves to survive in less water conditions. They have find out the ways to absorb more water, to reduce the transpiration, that is loss of water, and they have adapted, they have acquired such structures which are helping them in storage of water. And all these things, all these adaptations are helping these xerophytes to survive under less water conditions, water scarce areas. These can easily survive themselves. So this is how these xerophytes are adapted. If we see reduced transpiration, that simply means over their epidermis a thick cuticle is present, and this thick cuticle is preventing the rate of transpiration in these xerophytes. Then we will see that when most of the aquatic organisms, when there is scarcity of water, that affects the survival of aquatic organisms, because they are living in water conditions. So whenever there are drought situation or rainfall is not proper, then these organisms, water is going to be less, lakes and ponds they dry up. So in such situation, chances are that aquatic organisms are going to die. So to survive themselves in less water conditions, they also show some type of adaptations, like many of the times many organisms show cyst formation, outer hard covering, that is protecting the organisms to survive in unfavorable conditions. Then they lay eggs with a thick covering, thick wall, that also survive or help in the survival of organisms again in unfavorable conditions. Thick walled eggs can be laid, or these organisms undergo estivation. We will talk estivation in another topic also, but estivation is simply known as summer sleep. Whenever such condition is occurring, an individual enters into deep sleep, where the metabolic rate of the organism is going to decrease. This is how the organisms adapt themselves when water conditions are going to decrease. Quality of water, salt content that is present in water, depth of water, all these things are also influencing that which type of organisms are living in water. So clarity of water, salt concentration, they are affecting the organisms. If we see the first thing, that is clarity of water, if water is clear, that simply means light can easily penetrate water, that means that producers can survive. Algae, small plants, they can survive in these areas where light is being penetrated. So near to the surface, producers are going to be present. But if we move in deep water, where there is less light, there the number of producers are going to decrease, the number of consumers are going to be present. So at depth, consumers are present. Some organisms lives on the surface of water, while some organisms are living deep inside the water, and their darkness is there, so they themselves produce their own light. Some of them are bioluminescent, which produce their own light. For salt concentration, they are having glands, they are having organs which help them to get rid of excess of salt. So organs are there to get rid of excess of salt. This is how the organisms manage themselves to live under different water conditions. Now there are water waves which affect organisms. So some of the organisms, they attach to a solid surface, or they simply live into burrows so that the waves cannot affect them. So they are sessile, attached to a surface like sponges are there, or they live in burrows in the water bodies so that they are not going to be affected by the water current. If we talk about animals, we can simply take example of earthworm. Earthworm live in burrows in soil, but when rainfall is there and their burrows are filled with water, that simply means that air is going to be replaced by water, then earthworm is having problem in respiration. So in these rainy seasons they come out because of excess water and less air in soil spaces. So they move out from their burrows. So these are some of the examples, and this is how the organisms are adapting themselves to the abiotic, most important abiotic factor, that is water. Now let's move on to the second one, temperature. When we say the word temperature, it simply means it is the degree of hotness or coldness of any substance. Some substances are hot, we can measure it by a simple thermometer that is having a mercury, that is going to, if temperature is high, that is going to rise, and up to what extent that mercury is rising, the level of the mercury is just giving us the temperature of that particular substance. So either a substance is hot or cold. So at up to what extent it is hot or cold, that is the degree of measurement, and this degree of hotness and coldness is known as temperature. Now temperature is highly important for living organisms. Living organisms survive in environment and they are well adapted to the temperature of that particular environment. If we see majority of the living organisms that are surviving on earth's surface, they are surviving on almost normal temperature conditions, average temperature conditions, say it is 0 to 40 degrees Celsius. But other than this, majority of organisms, some organisms survive at either very high temperature, say 60 to 90 degree Celsius, or they are surviving at very low temperature, say minus 30 to minus 50 degrees Celsius. Majority of organisms are surviving at average temperature. Some organisms are surviving at very high temperature and some organisms are surviving at very low temperature. And same is happening with earth also. Earth is having different temperature at different points. If we see at the equator, this is the line that is passing through the center, equator, having maximum temperature, and if we move towards the pole, on both sides, North Pole and South Pole, towards the pole, temperature is going to decrease. Over here also and here also, there is decrease in temperature, slow and steady decrease in temperature, and it is going to be the minimum over these poles. So exactly same way, the organisms that are living in these areas that are varying in temperature are also going to be different, and they are going to be well adapted to the temperature in which they are surviving. This is how the organisms are varying. Now some of the organisms are there which are living in such environmental conditions in which they are going to face almost a constant temperature throughout the year. They are known as stenothermal animals or stenothermal organisms. So So these ctenothermal organisms, they are going to have same temperature, or you can say constant temperature throughout the year. Temperature variations are not there. The second type of organisms are eurythermal organisms. These are the organisms which are surviving in those environmental conditions, in those areas where temperature is changing. Either it is changing at a very fast rate or slow rate, but it is continuously changing. So they are not facing a constant temperature throughout the year. There is change in temperature, and that is going to affect these organisms. So organisms are going to adapt themselves according to the temperature they are surviving. We will see how the organisms are adapted for temperature. There are two types of organisms. One we call as warm-blooded organisms and one other we call as cold-blooded organisms. First I am talking about the warm-blooded organisms. These are known as homeotherms, or they are also known as endotherms. These are the organisms whose temperature, body temperature is not going to vary with the environment. Environmental temperature is varying, but that is not influencing the body temperature of a organism. That's why they are known as warm-blooded organisms. So they are going to maintain a homeostasis, a constant body temperature conditions. For these, they are having different adaptations, like the coat is going to have, coat of mammals are going to have hair for the maintenance of body temperature. If we talk about whales, they are having blubber, mean that is having subcutaneous fat. Birds are having feathers for the maintenance of body temperature. So this is how these warm-blooded organisms are having adaptations. The second type of organisms are cold-blooded organisms. Cold-blooded organisms are known as poikilotherms, or they are also known as ectotherms. Now these are the organisms whose body temperature is going to vary according to the environmental temperature. Whenever the temperature of environment is going to change, their body temperature is also going to change. Now what different adaptations they are showing to prevent the harsh effect of temperature? They undergo different type of sleep, like hibernation and estivation. Hibernation is known as winter sleep. Hibernation is shown by those organisms which are living in colder areas. So whenever the temperature is going to be very low, these organisms, they are going to eat up lot of food so that that can be used, that is going to be deposited in form of fat, and they are going to enter into a deep sleep, into the caves or their burrows or in the rocks, and their metabolic rate is going to be very low, and constantly through this time in winter sleep they are using the fat that they have deposited for this particular time. So this is a deep winter sleep at very low temperature. Second one is estivation, that is summer sleep. The organisms which are living in high temperature conditions, whenever hot summer is there, temperature is going to be increasing extremely high. At that time, say snakes are living in desert areas, they undergo a deep sleep to avoid that very high temperature, that is estivation. Some of the organisms show periodic activity also because of the variations in temperature. Say if we talk about lizard, during very hot summer days, lizards are more active during morning and evening. During morning and evening, because at that time the temperature is going to be low during very hot summer days. So these are some of the adaptations that are shown by organisms towards temperature. Let's discuss about a little bit more. Another adaptation is winter eggs. Whenever temperature is going to be very less, organisms lay eggs because they are not going to survive in that very low temperature. So these winter eggs are going to survive, and whenever the temperature is going to be normal, new generation is going to be coming from these eggs. And another important adaptation is that organisms show migration. They, whenever the temperature is going to change, the seasonal variations are there, organisms migrate from one place to another place. When there is extremely low temperature, they are moving to some warmer areas, and when very high temperature is there, again they are moving to some cooler areas, and this is how these organisms are surviving themselves in different temperature conditions. Now the next abiotic factor is light. Again, for the survival of organisms, we know light is very important. We are talking about the sunlight that is falling on the earth's surface, because that is the source of energy that is basically helping in the survival of living organisms. The light that is coming from sun, that is a electromagnetic spectrum. A broad different wavelengths of light are coming from sun. So there is a electromagnetic spectrum. Out of this electromagnetic spectrum, we are talking about, if we are saying light, that is the visible part of the electromagnetic spectrum, that is almost ranging from 390 to 700 nanometer. If we are moving beyond this 700 nanometer, then we are having certain rays like infrared rays, radiations, radio waves, and if we are moving in this direction, wavelength less than 390 nanometer, here we are getting UV radiations, cosmic rays, X-rays, and this is the visible light, the white light, that is going to be broken down into different colors. Now UV radiations, we know that there is in stratosphere, there is a ozone layer that is not allowing this UV radiation to enter. into the earth atmosphere, because these are harmful radiations that are affecting the living organisms. UV, if we see this UV radiations, then UVC, UVB and UVA are present, out of which C is going to be the deadly one and B is going to be the most effective radiation that is having various harmful effects. The ozone layer present in stratosphere, that is not allowing, there is 100% absorption of UVC and 50% of UVB is being absorbed by the ozone layer, and that is preventing our earth from the effect of UV radiations. Now, the intensity of light, the duration of light which organisms are getting, that is influencing the survival of organisms. So, let us see how light intensity, duration of light is influencing, or how organisms are adapted to these things. The very first common thing is that it is a source of energy. The radiant energy that is falling on plants, they are using this radiant energy to convert inorganic substances into organic substances, and this energy is going to be stored in these organic substances, and these are used by plants as well as other organisms. So, that is starting base of any of the food chain. This is how the solar energy is being trapped in these organic substances, and that is acting as a source of energy for other organisms that are surviving on earth. Another thing is photoperiodism. It is the duration for which an organism is getting light, for how much time. So, it is duration of light, and duration of light is very important for many of the phenomena. Like the simple one is flowering and growth of plant, that is highly influenced by photoperiodism. There are some plants which are going to bloom when they are getting light for more than 12 hours. These plants are known as long day plants. The light requirement is for more than 12 hours. Now, some plants are known as short day plants. They are requiring light, but that should be less than 12 hours. And some are day neutral plants, means the duration of light is not affecting their flowering pattern. Photoperiodism affects the breeding cycle of various organisms. Like short day animals which breed during when days are shortening, long day animals which breed when days are lengthening, and again neutral which are not having, means they are not having particular season for breeding. So, just like that, there are short day animals, long day animals. For photoperiodism, another factors are change in coat color. The color of the coat, their outer covering also changes depending upon the duration of light the organisms are getting. Migration also, bird migration is there. Birds migrate whenever seasonal changes are there or the length of day and night is going to change. So, these are some adaptations for photoperiodism. The next adaptations are that pigmentation. Light is also affecting the skin pigments in organisms. Say I am taking simple example of wall lizard. They are getting more light, skin color is going to be light, and if less light is going to be there, skin color is going to be dark. So, the pigments that are present in skin, they are being affected by the duration and intensity of light. Another one is daily activities of organisms. We know some of the organisms, they are nocturnal animals. Means they are going to be hiding themselves during the daytime and they becomes more active during the night time. Say we are having examples like bat is there, owl is there. These are nocturnal organisms which are active during dark period. So, light is influencing their activity. Some organisms like we can say rabbit, that is active during dusk and dawn, that is known as crepuscular. And most of the organisms are active during the daytime. These are known as diurnal organisms. Lots of examples are there. All are diurnal organisms. So, light is also affecting the daily activities of the organisms. Another adaptations are plant movement. Most of the plants like leguminous plants, their leaves are going to fold or droop down during the night time. So, simply light is influencing the movement of the plants. Even distribution of organisms also is being affected by light. If we see the animals that are present on Earth's surface, the temperate, tropical and temperate regions are having maximum number of animals surviving there because that region is having optimum light and even water conditions are also good. So, distribution of organisms is also dependent upon light. And growth. If we talk about growth, yes, light is responsible for growth. If we say example of plants, if a plant is getting proper light, height of the plant is going to be proper. This light is influencing the opening and closing of stomata. Leaves are going to be properly present. Maximum number of leaves are going to be present in proper light conditions. So, yes, light is responsible for the growth of a plant and it is highly influencing the growth of the plant. So, these are some of the adaptations which organisms show towards light. So, we have talked about three abiotic factors: water, temperature, light, and how they are influencing the living organisms. Now, we are left with one abiotic factor, that is soil, which we are going to discuss in our next class, and along with that we are also going to talk about the biotic factors.